the real world.
Yeah, to the real world. We'll have to see. FlyQuest, like you said, these guys aren't afraid to innovate. They're not afraid to get a little bit imaginative with their drafts, and we'll see what they can pull off here today up against TSM. Banning out the Brand and the Lucian, first of all, on the side of FlyQuest.
It was a really interesting thing because FlyQuest Academy, I spoke with a lot of their guys before the season really kicked off, and they were discussing a lot of these strategies that you ended up seeing later in the LPL and the LCK. You know, they were experimenting and trying similar things out themselves. So a very forward-thinking team full of smart players who are also obviously adaptable enough to actually implement those strategies, not just come up with them.
Camille will be the final ban on the side of FlyQuest Academy. They want to make sure that they're not going up against the same kind of camping that happened the last game. Maybe they were watching that game. And TSM Academy, their bans Nock, Zoe, and Irelia all going to be removed from the game.
A lot of meta champions being taken away, a lot more power pick focused than any sort of specific strategy. The Kai'Sa lock-in by FlyQuest, very interesting to me. We're talking about forward thinking and how they have a plethora of strategies at their disposal. No one in North America is really playing gold funnel strats, aside for them when they had the Mordekaiser. The Kai'Sa really early takeaway does make you think maybe they're going for a different gold funnel strategy, though the Mordekaiser is still available.
Gold funnel is interesting because it's something that a lot of people were complaining about originally, but it's also something that has a pretty abysmal win rate overall if you look at it just as a whole.
Yeah, and it feels very situational if it works. Like, you can usually point to a couple things that went really right in the game to make it work. And it's still seeing a decent amount of play in Korea, but really not in North America.
Yeah, it worked against SKT, but SKT is having an interesting time right now.
Yeah, they're struggling. They've tried it a couple times, and they made it look pretty fair and balanced. Europe, there's a couple teams experimenting with it. LPL, there's a couple teams experimenting with it. LCK, a couple more. But they are also doing the most experimenting across the board.
Right. All right, so looking at what we're seeing this time around, it is the Kai'Sa for FlyQuest Academy, also going to be complemented by the Taliyah and the Aatrox. TSM picking up the Mundo and the Swain for what I'm assuming are solo lanes, but in this day and age, Mark, you can never quite tell exactly where everybody's going to be.
Yeah, that Swain could easily end up bot lane, and I am very interested by this FlyQuest composition so far as the Rakan gets locked in. This is the beginnings of the exact same Super Kai'Sa strategy that was, or I guess it was a Tariq E that they ran this with, but it was another gold funnel strategy where they put the Taliyah in the bot lane and the Aatrox in the top lane to give you two pushing side lane matchups, and then your mid jungle just super power farms. They comboed the Taliyah bot lane with a Shen, and the Shen would taunt, and the Taliyah would get a free W pushback with Electrocute.
It's how they got first blood in that game.
Yeah, they killed everyone with that combo, and then the Tariq E is just like, hey, our team's already winning.
All right, these guys won, so now if they ever happen to fall off, we've got 6-item Invulnerable Master Yi.
Yeah,
we have no problem.
So I'm really curious what FlyQuest is going to go with here, because if TSM doesn't ban the Shen out, they can basically run the exact same comp. But with the Kai'Sa instead of the Yi in their funnel strat. We'll see what they go with, because this could easily end up much more standard than I'm hyping it up. We could just see Taliyah mid, Aatrox top, Kai'Sa bot.
Well, we will see Morgana and Alistair banned away by TSM Academy, targeting the support pool. Wants to make sure they keep the black shields away from the Kai'Sa. They don't want any of that CC immune monster status stuff. That's not in anybody's wheelhouse. Xayah and Olaf going to be banned out by FlyQuest. They're saying, all right, you've got Rakan. You're not allowed to have both halves.
Yep, but what's interesting is the Rakan has been seeing a lot more combo with the Vladimir as well. Xayah Rakan, obviously, great combination, no questions asked. But if you want really strong all-in at 6, the Rakan plus Vladimir is actually a really great lane for that, because we're talking about the spiking with the Electrocute and maybe your first item. And the Rakan allows people to get engaged on by the Vladimir, so it doesn't need to blow his summoners to do it. And they actually have really strong all-in threat at 6.
I mean, Rakan charms everybody, throws them up into the air. They're standing on top of each other for Vladimir's
Throw the ult down, yeah.
All of a sudden, everything just comes together exactly as you would hope. FlyQuest Academy to saying, all right, there's the Braum.
That works in the mid
Mark,
lane.
I think you may have
I'm excited.
us all to a gold funnel attempt.
I'm telling you, dude, like, I don't think they're broken. I think it works situationally, and FlyQuest is the team that keeps pushing the envelope here. All right, you lost me. I guess we're just going boring standard?
It gives Kai'Sa a buff.
Yeah, but you would assume the Nidalee goes jungle, which means the Kai'Sa...
No, Nidalee goes bottom with Taliyah.
That sounds miserable.
Yep.
I'm pretty sure this is just really standard. The Braum sold me that the Braum was going mid with the
Yeah,
Kai'Sa.
yeah, that's what I was totally
and then
thinking
they picked
as well.
Nidalee. We'll see what they do.
All right, we'll see how it works. If it's Nidalee Talia bottom, you owe me a cookie from the catering.
I didn't say that was going to happen.
No, well, I already said this is what we're doing.
This is what I thought.
This is what we're doing.
Yeah, no.
All right, fine. Well, I guess I lose.
Yeah,
I'll never get that catering cookie again.
No, I mean, Nidalee just really doesn't work that many places in the meta. It's basically jungle. And so once you see that, the Talia and the Kai'Sa aren't going jungle, and the Kai'Sa's not going mid, so the Talia's going mid, and then you end up with this team comp.
Unlucky.
Interesting. We'll see if TSM Academy does in fact flex back. They do. They were threatening the Swain in the bot lane, but I think it makes a lot more sense for him to be mid lane, and the all-in threat is kept alive.
And we saw already how the major Kai'Sa build these days is more of an AP build. She's not really an AD carry as much as she's an AP marksman. Has the Nashor's Tooth, the hat against his Rageblade, things like that. But I mean, there's a lot of AP damage on the side of FlyQuest Academy. You've got a Nidalee, you've got a Talia, you've got a Kai'Sa. And Mundo with his natural inbuilt MR resistance these days. Magic resistance? Yeah, with his natural inbuilt MR is really, really good against these multi-AP comps.
That's the thing, is FlyQuest comp against some other team comps, Kai'Sa can be built however she wants. But against Mundo specifically, like you're saying, with how much of a monster he is, you probably do not want to over-profile your DPS types.
Right.
And so you probably do want to split the Talia and the Kai'Sa a little bit. But we'll have to see.
The nice part is, the person he's going to be splitting against mostly is the guy he needs to build armor against.
Yeah. So maybe the Aatrox can go a little bit more of a split push focus build. He'll still obviously go with the Ginsu's Rageblade. But maybe he goes up Leia the Rune King and makes it very difficult for the Mundo to stay in lane against him. You know, you can go for a more split push focus build like that than the typical Ginsu's Titanic or Ginsu's Triforce or whatever else you might be going.
I'm going to keep an eye on it this game. I want to see if he invests in more towards that 1v9 solo carry type of build, or if he does continue going for the typical team fighter like we've seen in the past. But it is up to TSM, like we've said, to find that first win. TSM is a name that, when you think competitive League of Legends, it's always one that comes up. I mean, even in international events, when TSM's not playing, crowds chant TSM. It's a team that has a legacy. It's a team that has a brand. And right now, it's a team that doesn't have a win in the North American Academy League so far. They want to get themselves on the board if they can, but FlyQuest Academy is going to start things off, stealing away that blue buff.
Yep, good steal there. You want to play this Nidalee pick very aggressively. Anda is a player who's best on these kind of efficiency-focused champions. He's we were talking about last week a little bit, a player who is the equivalent of a gym rat, as a euphemism you hear a lot in traditional sports. Still don't know what that is in LCS and things like that. We need a similarly good euphemism, but he's a student of the game, so to speak, who loves studying routing and pathing and comps and all these things. And so on Nidalee, you're on a champion that will be very good about exploiting pathing.
And Nidalee feels so feast or famine too. I mean,
oh yeah,
Nidalee is one of those champs that falls in the same category as Lee Sin and Elise, where if you get to level 6 and you see them sitting on 0, 0, and 0, you're like, all right, well, this pick didn't do what it was supposed to do.
Yeah, definitely the case. And unlike the Lee Sin, who gets a power spike, Nidalee at 6, not really gaining too much more for herself.
Hey, her pounce does like 50 more damage or something.
Yeah, all her Cougar form.
Yeah, it's some. I'm not gonna lie, I've never played Nidalee. It's a line skill shot, and I can't do those. So.
I did play Nidalee, and I stopped for the same reason.
They're hard to hit, Mark.
But
they're a lot harder than running at your opponent and mashing Q.
Well, so I missed like old top Nidalee. That's what I played.
The Bruiser one?
Bruiser Triforce.
RF Legendary, like, Bruiser.
VMAX, so you didn't even need to land.
Yeah, you just heal yourself and then auto attack them really
your attack speed's crazy. Yeah. That's what I played. And if
all right, that sounds like me. That sounds like
yeah. And if I remember correctly from back then, your R level ups increase Cougar form damage. But.
Okay. Still, it's not something impactful like a Lee Sin kick or something else. You've got to take advantage of the fact, or even a Xin Zhao ultimate. Xin Zhao's one of those champions that previously, back in the day, his ultimate felt kind of bad because, yeah, it gave you resistances, but it just didn't have the same impact that a lot of other big ones did. But nowadays, now that he's got the awareness built into it, that he can ignore the damage coming from any champion further than 500 units away from him, it's actually very strong. It's the difference between winning and losing a fight many times.
Yeah, it was always a little bit of a strange ability where like you would go in to initiate and then you would ult and hit people away and then you'd be like, what did I just do?
It'd be like, wait a second.
I thought I was starting a fight, but apparently I disengaged it. And it's still kind of the case with that, but like you said, there's more going on with the kit now. It actually, with the
feels
ability,
more coherent.
Yeah, it feels a lot better, and with the W as well, giving a little bit more range, able to hit people with that, gives them more options in how to play fights out.
And Xin, I don't know, what would you say between Xin and Nidalee? Which one do you expect to see more out of early? Because we already talked about Nidalee's snowballing, feast or famine nature, but Xin Zhao is also a champion that I don't want to see sitting on 0-0 and 0 by the time he hits level 6.
Yeah, it is very strange in that way where both champs want to be super aggressive early on. With Phase Rush, I was talking with Azael about just how sticky Xin is in the early game. With an E-auto Q, you get your Phase Rush proc, and you're basically on top of that Nidalee the whole rest of the way, most likely. But it's hard to say. I mean, I would think a slow game actually favors the Nidalee. With how quickly she clears and her power farming and all that stuff, she can get a sizable lead on the Xin without really needing to interact and do too much, whereas Xin definitely wants to gank. Yeah, the weird interaction part is that Xin will become a real frontline member, whereas Nidalee is notoriously bad in team fights. So we'll have to see. Maybe she goes for the Ardent Sensor build, and you actually go for this much more supportive Nidalee to buff up the Kai'Sa, and then you can get an easier version of teamfight presence than having to jump in Cougar form. So I'm actually really interested to see what Onda chooses to do.
I also want to point out that when we mentioned earlier that the shielding champions got hit with nerfs recently, shielding, supporting, enchanting, whatever you want to call these items, this entire class of items like Ardent Sensor also got hit in the power that they added to heals and shields. So despite the fact that it's not as big as the shield nerfs overall, those nerfs still exist. So that playstyle will be slightly weakened indirectly as Mike Young grabs himself the Scuttle Crab in the top part of the map and moves in for a bit of counter jungling action to find the blue buff still around.
Yeah, curious to see that still up. We were so talking about what the champions did, wasn't watching the pathing super closely, and it looks like Nidalee had left that up in an attempt to keep it for a certain timing, or just decided it wasn't necessary at all. By the way, Mike Young taking away that blue buff.
Well, Mike Young takes blue, but Onda says, all right, you can have the blue buff. I just want this blue dragon. Brings his bottom lane up to help him. With JJ and Aerie here, the damage should be more than enough to take that one down. The plasma procs, the Kai'Sa secures it, and FlyQuest Academy walk away with a 6-minute first Drake. Ocean Drake feels so good to get that early.
Yeah, really nice for them. Really good for their champions as well, being able to spam out all their abilities. Talia and Kai'Sa, two champions who can sometimes feel pretty gated by their mana constraints. So this is going to be great for them. And already a nice gold lead for FlyQuest, just the farming advantages. Kai'Sa going to have an easier time 3-6 than the Vladimir will. The Talia pushing in against Swain, as well as the Nidalee power farming, all giving him that nice little under 1,000 gold lead.
And last game we saw in Aatrox just have about the worst lane you could imagine. He got Hashinshin. He was not enjoying top lane because of the amount of attention that he was getting from the enemy jungler. But this time around, the Aatrox is allowed to pretty much do as he pleases. He's staying even in gold with the Mundo, practically point for point on the amount of gold they've farmed, and he'll be able to scale up and get to that point he wants to be that monster that we saw even a 0-7 Aatrox become in just the last game.
Yeah, it's really surprising to see just that mini rework that Aatrox got, as well as some of the itemization changes and getting Conqueror and these things really push him into this monstrous late game split push threat because he gets relatively tanky, gets a ton of damage and health sustain in his kit, and becomes very hard to deal with in the side lane.
Bottom side, you're seeing Aerie hit level 6 before anybody else. Gonna keep eyes on TSM Academy bottom lane levels though, because like you said, Mark, it's that level 6 wombo combo potential. If Rakan can go in, land the quickness, get it into the knock-up as well, and then have Vlad follow up with the Hemo play, you've got some serious damage threat. It'll be up to Aerie and JJ to make sure they're aware enough to avoid such a situation as the farming continues for Onda level 6 here on the Nidalee. Mike Young also rocking that ulti here on the Xin Zhao, staying a little bit behind his opponent in terms of leveling, but that's what you would expect going up against something like the Nidalee. But Mike does have the ever so important crab control.
Got that crab control. He was a level down previously, so good to see him catching back up. And Onda kind of losing a little bit of his advantage with the Drake take and those kinds of things. But overall, relatively even. Still waiting to see what the first action is, because it does feel like Pekka at this point should start getting out of his lane, influencing one of these side lanes. But it is tough because Mundo is notoriously difficult to kill, and your bot lane here, while pushed up, is starting to potentially have the matchup flip on them.
Let's talk a little bit more about this Mundo, because this is Pie Cake Lord, remember? And you mentioned at the start of this game, this is a guy who, when we saw him at Scouting Grounds, what were people talking about? They were talking about his Camille, they were talking about his Fiora, they were talking about this guy playing these carry, bruiser, split pusher style of champions. And so far, he's kind of been put on tank duty with TSMA. But Mundo, although he's a tank, he's sort of like a carry tank. He still does a lot of damage. He can still fight. He can still split push. And that's what I'm interested in seeing Pancake Lord on this time, is seeing if they can make that succeed. Talia Wall comes in. Mr. Rawl is going to be sidestepping the spear. Wants to buy as much time. Tried to save the flash, but Talia Wall still lasts just a bit too long.
Surprised to see the flash. Unless his W is down for something that I missed. I believe he could have just W'd there and waited for the Talia Wall to come down. Yep. Maybe would cost him some more HP technically, but I think you'd rather lose a little bit of HP and then regen it up with your Qs than to lose a 5-minute cooldown on your flash, which will heavily negate your all-in potential that they might have had otherwise. So a little bit of a curious decision there, but maybe I missed something off screen and his W is down. It's a 20-second cooldown.
Yeah, sometimes maybe it gets blown in like a small trade just to dodge a winner's bite or something, because he didn't want to risk getting the CC piled onto him. But either way, he is down a flash now. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. With that cooldown no longer available, it means there is an opportunity to punish for FlyQuest in the future if they see that chance and jump on it. Tekken will continue to try to shove up here in the mid lane. And Blaze Olive has hit that point on Swain that I was talking about in a previous match where level 9, things become spammable. Pancake Lord going to be slowed down, flashes out of the way of the Glacial Fissure, and all of a sudden, FlyQuest's attempts are in vain to catch that Mundo. They will, however, still put themselves in a good spot for the Tier 1.
Yeah, and this is a very interesting play that's starting to become more standard when you're against these aggressive, bruisery, all-in bot lanes that we sometimes see brand most notably in the LCS. Teams have started flipping their bot lanes up to the top side right around their first item power spike in 10 minutes so that they can actually trade out turrets and get them out of this lane that potentially is starting to become very dangerous to them. It's becoming a bit of a staple play, and once again, FlyQuest Academy showing how smart they are, how much attention they're paying to the meta, and what people are doing to avoid some of these pitfalls. And not only do they get the turrets, they're actually going to be able to grab the Rift Herald as well.
They got the Rift Herald. Yeah, TSM responded with a turret of their own, but they were too late. They lost the first turret bonus gold over to FlyQuest Academy. So overall, FlyQuest Academy playing the rotation game in a smart way, getting themselves these leads. It's now almost up to 1,000 gold, not including the bonus that you have, the intangibles from that Ocean Turret.
And it's really, to go back and keep talking about that, it's a really cool strategy that's become even stronger with the presence of TP that showed up on the Marksman. Previously, if you did it, you would back and you'd have to run all the way up to the top lane to get that happen.
Right, it takes 30 seconds to hoof it.
Yeah, and it's a bit of a slow rotational play, but with TP, I mean, you're an AD carry. You really don't care about your TP that much. You see people use it for tempo all the time, and so you use it for a tempo play, and while it would have been nice to kill the Mundo in that play, you really don't care.
That's not the main prize.
That's not the point.
That's a bonus.
Yeah, that's a bonus. That's some cream on top if you can get it. But otherwise, you just take that turret down and you keep up with this pressure game that they've been playing. And so very, very cool strategy that we're starting to see more and more of. It's always been in the game, but when the lanes were much more standard with marksman versus marksman, you didn't see people really feeling the pressure to get out of there.
JJ ends up walking into the wrong part of the river, though, gives first blood over to TSM Academy as Mike, Mr. Rawlez, and Shady all find him, caught him out.
And that kind of goes to show the concern when laning up against that all-in bot lane, combined with the jungler, and the fact that they were topside previously, didn't have much vision control down there, just a little bit too aggressive trying to get vision control back for his marksman.
Spellbinder completed on the Vladimir now as well, so remember that as he builds the charges for that, once he stacks them up to whatever he deems to be a suitable value, he can use those in the middle of the fight and get a massive boost of both AP and move speed. Pancake Lord continuing to try to defend underneath this tier 2. Mundo trying to get away from this one, pops the ulti, wants to regen, wants to stay safe here, lands the briefcase onto Peckinwolf. And it looks like FlyQuest decides this is no longer worth it. They would have to invest way too much. Mike Young going in deep onto Airy. Flash for flash. Airy gets himself away from that one. JJ still going to be in some trouble. Throws up the Unbreakable. Gets knocked right back up into the air. Glacial Fissure going to be keeping him alive along with that stopwatch. Reinforcements have arrived. Onda comes in, throws out the spear. Blaze Olive still going to get that last little bit of damage, but will not quite find it. Mr. Raw is going to be taken low as well. No, can't quite make his way into the fight as a Blaze Olive takes down JJ, and TSM Academy come up 1-0 in that fight.
Really nice skirmish by both teams as Onda potentially in trouble.
Grabbing themselves a bonus stopwatch on the way out. Feels good, man.
Feels real good. And like I said, both teams playing that pretty well. JJ stayed alive for so long. He actually probably could have disengaged and stayed alive the entire time, but FlyQuest tried to punish with those members that had temporarily rotated up to the top side. Tried to punish that engage by TSM Academy, but felt like FlyQuest was getting a little too cute. They dropped Shelly in the mid lane for priority. We're going to rotate top. We're going to get our split pusher going against the Mundo, but there's no minion wave. You start getting poked out. Nothing's really working. You could have just stayed mid with Shelly and taken that mid lane turret, which has no HP, and instead you're getting counter engaged on as you put your bot lane in the mid lane. But once again, JJ plays this pretty well, takes a lot of damage, has his stopwatch to stall out. Here comes Onda coming in, and JJ stays alive with the heal from Onda. Now No is caught out of position. He's going to have to jump away to try and stay alive, and the BlazeAll finally able to flash in and finish off that kill. Not able to find anyone else, but once again, you know, you could have, you know, kiss, keep it simple, stupid. Just, you know, you have Rift Herald in the mid lane, throw a couple of auto attacks, take that turret down. Don't need to go for all these crazy plays.
Yeah, both deaths so far onto JJ. The first one just being in the wrong place at the wrong time in the river, and the second time around not respecting what a Blaze Olive could do with just a flash into Demon Flare activation. So gonna need to see him play a little bit more carefully if FlyQuest Academy wants to come out on top in this one. They're still commanding the gold lead. Despite the fact that it's 0-2, they still have the overall advantages thanks to the farm leads they've built up in the jungle, in the top lane, and the bottom lane. And we'll see if they can try to make a play here in the mid lane, throwing out the Weaver's wall, not isolating Shady. Even if they did, he could have just jumped back over that wall. They'll try to push up into this turret. They do land the seismic shove down onto Shady, who's going to go in, pops the quickness, trying to re-engage this fight. Airy going to be taken very low. No way out of that one. A Blaze Olive seals his fate with the lightning. JJ forced to flash back up the wall, but No wants to go in. Pie Cake Lord's going to say no to that one, flashing himself out. Mr. Rollins in the back line. JJ going to be kept alive ever so barely. Peck and Wolf has to flash over the wall. A Blaze Olive again, popping that Swain ulti, a massive force in the fight. It's going to be a bot laner for a mid laner down in the Wraith Pit, as well as Peck and Wolf and Mr. Rollins send each other to the grave. And it's another fight going the way of TSM Academy, picking up 3-1.
A couple people starting to get low on TSM Academy. Mike Young almost dropped as well. They did find Mr. Rollins, but this drain tank meatball regen comp, whatever you want to call it for TSM.
That's quite a mouthful.
It's a lot of things. I mean,
drain tank meatball regen comp.
I mean, look at it. Swain and Vladimir, both mages who get very, very tanky and have a ton of regen built into their kit. And then you have Mundo as well, who can charge you down. They end up a little bit too far ahead of their team, so Shady kicks things off and it allows the rest of the guys to start running them down. There's no hope for a marksman this early in the game. You don't have enough items yet to really chew through all this health that's coming in. Mr. Rollins goes a little bit too deep here, but he is setting up his team to find a lot of success, so not too bad for them. And it's just caught out, didn't quite have the cooldowns to stay alive. And there you see, you know, just they can run straight at you. Swain will run at you, Vlad will run at you, Amundo will run at you, Zim will run at you, and there's just no way for FlyQuest to have the DPS to cut through them yet. And as much as JJ's trying, he's not enough heal by himself.
You can see the gold on the screen. It's still pretty even across the board, considering the game is only 100 gold apart, even after that big TSM team fight win. One thing I also want to point out, keep in mind, with TSM having scores like 2-0 on both their mid laner and their jungler, those kill sprees are worth some gold now. So if FlyQuest Academy can grab those shutdowns, it's going to spike them ahead by a decent margin.
This is a really interesting game to me for a couple of reasons. I think what FlyQuest were trying to do was very, as we see a Blaze Olive taking a little bit of chunk. Probably going to finish this turret off finally. I think what FlyQuest was going for was a very interesting strategy. You have a lot of wave clear and push priority, and you want to get an early game focus on moving between turrets and melting all the turrets down one at a time to build a gold lead and using tempo as much as you can to your advantage. They failed to do so. They made a couple mistakes that we were talking about, and now this mid-game team comp by TSM is probably going to start taking over these fights. These are champions that spike on one item super hard, as well as scaling with levels very well. So now that a lot of these guys are hitting 9, 10, 11, 12, they're getting second level of their ultimate and becoming very hard to kill at this point in the game for FlyQuest.
FlyQuest Academy still looking to put some of that innovativeness that we were talking about during Champion Select to use. I want to see some creative plays, some creative maneuvers on the Rift, Mark, not just in the Champion Select phase, but TSM are just utilizing this drain tank meatball regen comp to...
I'm surprised you remember all the words I said.
Yes.
I don't remember what I said.
They were a beautiful symphony of language. I had to keep that in the memory reserves. But they do take down that mid lane tier 1. They get themselves 3 turrets overall. FlyQuest Academy will answer immediately, having 3 turrets of their own. And we're back to a deadlock in terms of the gold. Neither team able to find that lead, but I do want to go back to what you mentioned earlier, talking about the Nidalee builds is more of a supportive looking style here with the Chalice of Harmony coming out.
Yeah, and this is helps alleviate some of the problems Nidalee run into. She's definitely not an Enchantress, but with that heal and the attack speed buff, that goes on, and if you have a hyper carry like the Kai'Sa, you can kind of slot into that Enchantress role, so you don't have to go for the AP Assassin, Lich Bane, I'm going to murder your face.
Oh my god, one hit, get out of my jungle, flash my mastery.
Yeah. You don't have to play Nidalee that way. That's the fun way, that's the flashy way.
Yeah.
But in a 5v5 team comp against whatever team comp you keep calling it, that I called it initially. Nidalee's not going to work.
The Drain Tank Meatball region comp?
Yeah, Nidalee's not going to perform too well against that comp. So you slaughter more into that Enchantress role. I do like the decision here by Onda.
So I already gave you 1 point for being right about Nidalee. I'm going to give you another point now for being right about the Aatrox. You said we might see the Blade of the Ruined King as opposed to the Titanic Hydra. And although Titanic will be coming in here shortly, Blade of the Ruined King versus this Mundo was the first choice. And look at the itemization Piecake Lord is forced to go into in response to that. Sunfire, Tabby, Thornmail coming up next. These are wonderful anti-Aatrox items, and they are really not good against AP Kai'Sa, Taliyah, and Nidalee.
No, this is definitely a focus on stopping the split push, which I think makes sense. If you lose side lane pressure, it's much worse than not being quite as tanky as you want to be in a team fight. So I understand the over-focus a little bit in dealing with the Aatrox, because you have other good frontline members here. Like we already hit it with the Vladimir and the Swain. Those people can also play frontline. So it's not like you're the sole tank taking up all this magic damage. And I can understand, like I said, just wanting to make sure you're never stuck under your turret 24/7, unable to stop this Aatrox.
On a standard Drain Tank Meatball region comp, no Meatball stands alone.
Standard.
Yep. Very standard.
You know what's great? Aatrox could slot into that comp and keep the name.
Yeah,
he's a
it would
tank.
still. I was actually, as soon as you said the name, I was like, wait, which team's Aatrox on again? It's like, because he does the same thing.
There's a lot of them in the meta right now.
Apparently that's just kind of the name of the game in League of Legends on patch 8.12, but the name of this game is still just blow for blow. Both these teams, nobody eking out an advantage. TSM Academy trying to push into the top side here, moving into the enemy jungle, setting down some wards, setting themselves up for picks, and so far we've seen Shady not be afraid to go in, even when it looked like they were trying to catch him out from the side of FlyQuest. He's not afraid to hit the R button, turn on that quickness, go back in and try to turn things back around on the side of FlyQuest. JJ gonna be taken low, healed up but still shut down, and Aries gonna join him in just a moment. No in the front line trying to hold off, but instead he's gonna be forced into resurrection immediately. Piecake Lord standing on top of that dead body, making sure he puts him down in the dirt for the second time. It's an 8-1 game now in the favor of TSM Academy. There are 3 dead on the side of FlyQuest, and you have to think TSM is gonna be looking at that Baron.
Yeah, 21 minutes in. They have the Mountain Dragon, so while their Baron damage isn't the highest, it's still pretty good right now. They're able to burn this down, and it's going to be really hard for Peckinwolf and Onda to force them off this objective. Already being forced back.
Mr. Rala is going after Peckinwolf, takes him very low, wants to get that empowered transfusion, flash away from Peckinwolf, keeps him safe. Mike Young and Piecake Lord trying to maintain aggro on the Baron, but Airy comes in, he wants to take down Shady instead. It looks like Shady's going to flash over the wall to safety, and Airy just gets taken down. Mr. Rala is going on a killing spree, 4-1-2 with this Vladimir.
Saw the YouTube montage in his eyes, but was not actually able to.
My mind's telling me no.
But
his body.
Hey, he stopped the Baron. He stopped the Baron.
Okay, it did. It did.
And here we just see the power of the comp that TSM's hitting right now. Like we were saying, hitting some power spikes, starting to be really hard for anyone to chew through. And they have a lot of engaged threats, and they can just keep chasing in. The turret's not enough to deter them at all. You see, even though Shady gets low, everyone else can just trade off. Blaze Olive is tanking it. Now Piecake Lord is taking it. Mr. Rollis can take a turn tanking that turret. And now they can go onto this Baron, and they have so much regen built into their kits that once again they're able to stay healthy. It's just unfortunate they spent so many resources chasing Peckinwolf that they had to peel off the Baron, and then with the TP coming in from Airy, while he did give up his life, it did stop the 2 men who were still on the Baron.
TSM not able to get that Baron means no real big change in the overall state of the game here. We're still looking at a pretty close contest between these two squads, but time and again, it's TSM that wins the fights. FlyQuest is staying even because they farm well, because they're making the most use of their resources. But when you look at the kills, when you see 9-1, you wouldn't expect the game to be as close as it is.
No, not at all. I think that speaks a lot to what FlyQuest's early game strategy was. Like I said, so focused on tempo that they, of course, take some turrets and they have some gold leads, but the fights at this point in the game are so heavily in TSM Academy's favor that they need to kind of go into this strategy. Peckinwolf moving over to No to try and take this turret down against the Mundo, sacrificing, really trying to fight in the mid lane, in the mid game, just try and play the map a lot more than your opponent right now.
Meanwhile, Mr. Rala is doing something that AD carries didn't normally get to do back in the marksman days, being the split pusher there in the top lane. Shady trying to get himself away. A nice Weaver's Wall to block away 3 of them. Is this the opportunity FlyQuest has been waiting for? A Blaze Olive going to be popping that Zhonya's Hourglass right there in the middle of the fight. Mr. Rala still trying to find the damage, utilizing that transfusion into the Hemo Plagues, but it's Mike Young going into the back line, blocking all the damage. It's a double kill for the TSM jungler. Make it a triple as he gets the AD carry as well. Onda has to run, and TSM Academy, only losing their support, will surely turn and find the Baron here.
Second time, looking at the Baron, no Pegamove this time. No TP on the AD carry to come back. 20 seconds on anyone. Onda can still potentially steal, but it's going to be a tough ask.
If Onda steals this, he is the absolute hero of the day for FlyQuest. 2-13. I just don't see there being any way you can get in there and try to steal this one out. Piecake Lord, Mike Young tanking it up, and there you go. Baron finally secured. 24 minutes, 46 seconds in the game, and TSM Academy finally gets what they need.
And this was a good look by FlyQuest. They pinch off a couple of the members, and they're in range for a monster Talia combo, but everyone hops the wall, actually, some of them using no to do so. And then the drain tanking that comes in from a Blaze Olive in his Zhonya's gives him enough healing to come back and re-engage in the fight. Shady kind of goes in and gives his life up to lock him in place so Mike Young could also follow up on it. Good job as a support player, guaranteeing the kills for the rest of his team on that cleanup. And it looked all right for FlyQuest, but they're just too weak at this point in the game. Not enough damage to actually find those kills.
I mean, look at Mike Young's Xin Zhao. He's got his Warrior, his Trinity Force, working on his Sterix Gauge next. He's also got the Stopwatch. We've been seeing a lot more of this recently, too. Champions that will likely build it later as some part of a Guardian Angel or a Zhonya's Hourglass or something. They pick it up early to use the active when they know they're going to be diving in.
Yeah, and it's something that can bait people very heavily if they have not been watching carefully to notice that you picked one up. And it also just enables you to go for really aggressive plays that normally would have got you killed. And when you're snowballing, that's what you need to keep snowballing, is make aggressive plays. Don't just sit back. And that's a great item. The Spike Track doesn't give any stats. You already have more stats because you're up gold. Buy some utility that will allow you to make more aggressive plays.
Well, let's see how aggressive TSM Academy want to get here. Remember, this is a pretty short-range team, as we've seen a lot of today. Swain and Vladimir, yes, range champions, but do their best work when they get up close and personal with their opponents. See how close they want to get to this inhibitor turret. They've got 2 minutes of Baron. They'd love to crack this base open while they've got this buff at their command. Nidalee will set up a couple of traps there to try to keep these guys away. Seismic Shove finds its way on the Mr. Rawlers. Winner's Bite also going to connect there. Sanguine Pool to get him away. And FlyQuest will continue holding this line for now while putting No in that top side and keep pushing up into the base of TSMA.
No one recalling to deal with him right now, so it looks like they're going to try and hard commit onto one of these turrets soon. There goes Mundo.
All right, Piecake Lord says, nope, we're not trying this. I got to get back there. We can't just give that turret away.
Yep, good decision overall, Wall. I appreciate looking for the more aggressive play. Definitely not worth risking it on an inhibitor for themselves. You can continue whittling these turrets down. You have Baron for another minute, and while, yes, Mr. Raleigh and a Blaze Olive, like you're saying, are not the best at taking turrets, they're both at 3-item AP carries, so each auto attack is going to do a couple hundred damage to this turret. You can see up on the top side just getting chunked down, so they are plenty strong to finish these turrets off.
Yeah, both inhibitor turrets nearly dead. One good, strong push will take those down. And
I'm digging this view.
Yeah, this is actually like
the double inhib view.
This is really good, man. We're just zoomed out. We're chilling. We can see whatever's going to happen to either lane. No still hasn't made his way back to the base of FlyQuest Academy, so TSM will take down that bottom lane tier 3 turret. Exactly what the doctor ordered for these guys. Now they can force that fight on open ground on the inhib if they want, or they can get yet another open opportunity for an inhibitor there in the mid lane. Now they can go for either one of these. Mr. Rollins will just continue chipping away at that. Auto attack after auto attack. Noah's made his way into the fight, but the fight's not going to be anything. The Weaver's Wall can't isolate anyone just yet. FlyQuest Academy continues just bouncing back and forth between these two things. It's FlyQuest ping pong as they want to hold both, but they may not be able to hold either. Baron only alive for 10 more seconds.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where you're just watching both drop and hoping the enemy team mispositions, but it doesn't look like it's going to happen. Maybe it would have been better if TSM Academy, or excuse me, FlyQuest Academy just pulled the trigger on one of these two inhibitors that are dropping down. Piecake Lord also working down the top side turret himself, really ballooning this gold lead up close to 10K now.
A game that was dead even for so long became about a 2,000 gold lead after the fight before the Baron, and then since then it has just gone completely out of control. TSM taking over not only the lead statistically, but in terms of the tempo on the map, having the one inhibitor down, having the other one at half HP, having everyone just knocking on the door to the FlyQuest Academy base. This is where TSM fans wanted to see this team at, ready to find that first win, ready to make some waves in Academy, look like a team that can really be a contender. And here we go, still 7,500 gold up. They will be forced back for now, but considering they're this far ahead, considering they've got all this money to spend, they're just going to come back bigger and badder.
Absolutely. Good decision, I think, to not overgreed for that mid lane inhibitor. Wasn't really going to add too much more to your map pressure. You already have mid lane priority locked down just by being ahead in the game. You don't need to overstay and get poked out or anything like that. Like you said, a lot of gold on people, 2,000 on most of the people. Vladimir still looking to spend his. Didn't actually
2,500 gold on this guy.
Yeah, I wonder what he's looking for. Either way, you see a lot of gold on their members. Very good decision to go back then. Spend it.
Maybe he's trying to get a Void Staff or something. I'm honestly not quite sure, but
not much MR to really chew through the Void Staff.
Well, I think AP items that cost slightly more than 2,500 gold. Void Staff's the first one that comes to mind.
Yeah,
I don't know if that's the right choice here, but thinking emoji? I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, who knows?
Skronger's not an AP champion. I hope he'll these items. Mike Young going towards the top lane, hanging out. He's got his support. He's got his top laner there as well. Remember, there's only one inhibitor turret left standing, so Piecake Lord's going to constantly apply some pressure to this lane just to make it so FlyQuest stays sweating. Bottom side has super minions constantly pushing that one up. The rest of TSMA is going to be hanging around the mid lane as well to keep putting more pressure onto the open inhib. And FlyQuest right now is just really in need of a misstep from TSM.
And they, like we said, with that Kai'Sa, they can potentially find a fight like that if the engage doesn't go quite right and Ari kites it out, but only on 2 items versus, like you said, that Void Staff showing up 4 items now.
Hey, I did it. Look at that.
4 items on the opposing bot lane carry. You're pretty heavily outclassed at this point in the game, and if they can continue to stall out and get the Kai'Sa more to the 3-4 item point, maybe that's enough to chew through the Mundo, but right now, looking like a tall order.
Piecake Lord nearly getting himself up to that inhibitor turret. Baron going to be live in 45 seconds. Cloud Drake, the last elemental Drake you'll see, alive in 30 seconds. Shady doing a good job sidestepping that seismic shove. Look at that nice little row of Nidalee traps in the jungle.
Someone's going to have a really painful foot if they walk through there.
It's like walking through an entire room full of Legos. You just step on one after another. By the end, you just feel like your foot's been through some sort of unholy hell of horrible piercing pain.
Lego traps.
Yeah, Lego, exactly. That's what we need is a Nidalee skin that drops those, but TSM Academy trying to make a move there, not quite going to find it. Peckinwolf blowing both summoner spells to get himself to safety. TSM health bars still mostly in good shape. Mike Young's going to regenerate. They do have no real regeneration in the form of Drakes. The only Ocean Drake so far did go to FlyQuest. Blaze Olive finding a little bit of damage down on JJ. Talia Wall goes through, but I mean,
Nidalee with a nice hurdle.
Getting anybody? Yep, Nidalee's like, all right, we'll jump over that and throw a spear, and Nidalee wasn't on the track team in high school. The hurdles and javelins just aren't quite where they needed to be. Mr. Rallis still trying to get himself away. Ari jumps in, forces out the Sanguine Pool. Mr. Rallis, though, just says, all right, cool, I'll pull it and walk away.
Yeah, they're pretty far forward now, so Blaze Olive taking a flank. They can just force this fight.
Yep, this is exactly what TSM Academy was looking for. JJ going to be jumped on again, taken very low. Piecake Lord looking to run him down. No escapes off to the side, of FlyQuest seems to have disengaged what could have been a very bad fight.
It's an interesting decision by TSM Academy going back to that first attempt onto Peckinwolf. With Baron not quite up yet, I would have thought that they would have wanted to keep their flash on their best engage tool in Shady and just wait for the Baron buff to come up and then engage if they look to counter it. Instead, they used that tool early on, not over an objective fight, and it's making this a little harder for them to win some of these fights.
Baron to about 5,000 health. TSM Academy still wanting to take this one down. They make the call. They're like, keep DPSing, keep DPSing, keep DPSing. Down to 2K. Shady grabbing the kill onto JJ. Starting this fight off. Baron's going to be disengaged on Piecake Lord, having to try to get himself away. No one's the damage. Exhausted, so he can't quite find it. Ari trying to escape. Going to be knocked up into the air, except for the zone. He's keeping him alive. Mike Young still looking to cut these guys down. Right into the middle he goes. The resurrection for No is only going to buy an extra couple of seconds. He goes down. The TP comes into the bottom lane. It's 4 dead on the side of FlyQuest Academy. TSM does not even need the Baron this time around. They should find their win. No problem whatsoever, securing that first win of the summer split.
Controlled by the
turrets, but the inhibitor, we'll see if it has any final words to say. Still, 9 more seconds before JJ's back up. Peckinwolf stands alone and stands for a long time. He will not Nexus itself under pressure, and that is a TSM Academy win. Just dragging out the last couple of seconds, and there we go.
Trying to get the most out of their first victory in Academy here for TSM.
Gotta savor it.
Yeah, got to enjoy it, find a couple more kills. They close that one out with their very strong mid-game team comp, really doing a good job picking fights around the mid lane towards the end of that game and then being able to snowball through to victory.
And I know we made a lot of jokes about the Drain Tank Meatball region comp, but at the end of the day, when they were as far ahead, or at least on even, and it wasn't even super far ahead, let's be honest.
It was even gold.
Yeah, it was even gold. But when you have even gold versus scaling champions that feel like they need multiple items to come online versus, hey, I bought health, I'm gonna run at you.
Yeah.
That's a pretty big problem.
Yeah, I mean, that's how power spikes work, you know, in the game. And one of them is power spiking at 20 minutes, and you're not. And you know, there were tools, like we were saying with FlyQuest Academy's comp. We spent so much time talking about what it could be and then what it ended up being that we didn't really spend as much time on TSM's comp. And it was the thing where FlyQuest isn't snowballing come 15, 20 minutes. The enemy team's comp is much stronger in 5v5 team fights. And then they could just keep forcing them down like this. It didn't matter if there was a turret right in front of them. They just pick one fight, get one guy down, trade off the turret aggro. Doesn't matter who has it. You can just keep melting these members down, and there's no way for them to all walk forward and continue to deal damage. They only have one real frontliner in the Aatrox, and I guess technically the Braum. So all these fights, despite this one being a really nice engage, if they had a gold lead here, this looks great for FlyQuest.
Oh yeah, it looks fantastic.
Not the case. Ablaze Olive is able to sail alive as Mr. Raleigh jumps in the back line, and they continue trading off who is the frontline member here for TSM's comp. And of course, it always ends with all those drain tanks being the guys left alive.
And there was so many times where it seemed like somebody from TSM was going to drop, especially Mike Young. I know I saw his health bar dancing with death time and time and time again, but every time he walks away with just a little, he keeps himself alive and not giving away those extra kills. Imagine if every time TSM got a kill or two, there was an equal return kill from FlyQuest. When the gold was even, when the score was 9-1, if the score is 9-9, all of a sudden FlyQuest has that advantage. So playing those fights so well and walking away, just skirting on the edge of death, is exactly what TSM had to do to keep themselves alive till they hit those power points.
Yeah, and I think people are making good decisions with their builds as well. We talked about how the Aatrox should go play the Rune King to try and get split push pressure, and at the same time, you have the Mundo realizing that and heavily prioritizing armor as well as getting the Grievous wounds down. So both top laners doing their best, but the 4v4 and the 5v5 just so heavily in TSM Academy's favor.
TSM Academy have to be feeling good about that one. Like I say, even though it is the first win of the split for them, sitting on a record of 1-3 now, getting that first win is the first step, right? You don't want to keep going down this path of, well, what's not working? Obviously, we're not figuring something out correctly. It's just loss after loss after loss. This tells you, okay, here's a formula for how you win these games. Repeat.
Exactly. Mike Young in particular looked pretty good this game as well, despite getting outpaced by the Nidalee early on in the game.
Which we expected.
Yeah, as we expected, and then he found a lot more fights for his team later on, and we talked at the top of the game about how he's having to gel with new teammates, not really a change that you go into all happy about, getting taken off from the main team and put down to the Academy team. And so there's obviously going to be a transition phase, and hopefully this is the first signs that they're coming through the other side of it.
Well, TSM's win in this game brings us to the end of our third game of the day, but there's more league action coming up right after the break. We'll return with Game 4 with 100 Thieves versus Fox Academy. Once again, hands off that browser.